What's up everybody, I'm Jack. Welcome back to the channel where I talk about all things Air Force and Air Force Academy related. In today's video I'm going to be talking about the Service Academy forums and why you should not stay away from them, but just be careful and cautious when you're navigating the site. So I'm going to be talking about all of that just in this video, because if you're watching this, you're probably either new to the whole Service Academy, ROTC, or just being commissioned as an officer in general, that whole process, or maybe you just want to know a little bit more about kind of the information you're looking at. So I'm going to lay that all out today, and hopefully I can answer some of your questions. And if you have any after this video, be sure to leave them down in the comments below, because I can make a separate video on that or just answer you directly. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So what do I mean when I'm talking about being careful on the Service Academy forums? So if you don't know what they are, for absolute starters, the Service Academy forums is basically one of two of the ways that people get their information for the most part. It covers ROTC, it covers the main Service Academy forums, it covers each thing because there's separate threads for actually admission, as well as specific things like medically, or the actual kind of appointment thread, because there'll be threads that start to come out when people start getting accepted, and I'll talk about that more later because that's a big thing I need to talk about, and things like that. So it's a big place. You can ask whatever you want. There's a lot of previous ALOs on there, a lot of previous grads, people that are currently at the schools, so they are a great source of information. Just you need to make sure that when you're doing this, you're getting the information from the most direct source as possible. Now I'm going to explain what I mean right here in a second. So this is what I'm talking about. When you start to look in the forums, you will start to see that a lot of the people aren't actually the people that are there, like I just previously said, like the ALOs, the kids, the graduates, etc. There's a lot of parents and family members on that site too. Now I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, or like, oh, you shouldn't have your mom or dad on the forums, but it's kind of like, why, right? You have these kids that are 18, 19, 20, even going up to the limit, like 23, right? I think the limit's 23. Prior enlisted people, there's really no need to have your parents on there. So there's parents on this site, and what I find is when somebody asks a question, and typically the person asking the question is a kid, right? Someone that's firsthand applying. They'll ask the question, and then it becomes a game of telephone with the answers, right? Like a parent will say something, and it's like how, you used to play telephone when you were in school. It starts with an initial message, and then, as it goes on person to person, it starts to get misconstrued, messed up, etc. That is what happens a lot. There's a lot of misinformation or slightly skewed information that ends up being a major deal on the Service Academy forum. And I see this a lot around appointment time, because appointment time is where everyone's going ballistic. Like I remember this year for class of 2024, I was on it until like 3 a.m. with everyone going back and forth. That's how big of a thing it is and how many people are involved. But when you go to ask a question, you'll see if it's a parent saying something by DS or DD, which means dear son or dear daughter respectively. So you'll see dear son or dear daughter, and they'll often say things. This is just a really not deep at all example, just off the top of my head. Like, someone will say, when are Falcon Foundations coming out? That's a thing for the Air Force prep program. If you're, more into West Point Naval Academy, you don't know what that is, just like a prep thing. So people would be like, well, when is Falcon Foundation coming out? Or when is, the main appointments getting out? Or the LOAs or whatever. And these parents start to say, oh, well, my kid's portal says this, or my kid said this, my kid said that. And then people tend to take this information as true when it's not true at all. So there's a lot of this. Now, I'm not just hating on all the parents. There's some really good parents, especially ones that have been previously in the military or go to academies, or went to academies rather. You can tell they know what they're talking about. So I'm not trying to wreck anyone, but just be careful, because there's a lot of misinformation. I would recommend asking somebody that is either in the service academies, graduated from them, in ROTC, was commissioned in some way, could even be OCS, that, because they'll know what they're talking about, right? So if you want to ask me a question, go ahead and leave it down in the comments, and I will only respond if I'm 100% sure on the topic that you're asking me to address. And that's the problem, is people guess a lot and they don't give for sure answers. They say, well, I think this happened, or I think we had a family member that this happened to them. So when you're answering questions, you really got to make sure that it's 100% the correct information, because you don't know how many people that information could be passed along to. So yeah, I just want to make this quick little video talking about that. If anyone wants me to elaborate on specific things, doesn't have to be on that, it could be on anything admissions related, ROTC, service academies, you know, whatever. Leave it down in the comments. Yeah, that's it. I hope this kind of gave you a little insight on what to do when you're kind of looking at these forms. If you have any questions, like I said, leave them down in the comments below and I can try to help you out. But yeah, as always, I'm Jack and I'll see you next time.